Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. Dr. Allen chats with successful investors exploring their journey from setback to triumph. Through this window, we glimpse the truths that inspire our guests to invest abundantly and flourish in all areas of life. And now your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, where we delve deep into the lives of our successful guests to learn the secrets of thriving to flourish abundantly in all areas of life. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. My guest today is the owner of Simpson Direct. His direct marketing company manages almost 300 different direct mail promotions each year. His knowledge of direct marketing techniques has helped him become the nation's leading expert in direct marketing campaigns. He is the author of The Direct Mail Solution and The Advertising Solution, both published by Entrepreneur. Welcome our guest today, Greg Simpson. Welcome, Greg. I'm happy to have you here, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. Let's get to know Greg Simpson. The way I like to start these, it tells us a whole lot about who we are as adults, I think, if we can step back into our childhood. So if you can bring to mind a childhood experience that as you look back on it from your adult eyes, you can look back on that as having been a transformative experience in your life. And childhood could be anywhere from 1 to 50. So
yeah. Yeah, you know, when one of the things that I think about when I was young that I didn't realize until I was much older was my detail to being organized and having things in a certain order. And with marketing, that's a lot of what you have to do is you have to have systems in place and you have to have order and you have to be organized. And when I was about 10 years old, my dad drugged me to this parade and he was helping organize the parade. And there were about 200 floats. So it was a pretty good sized parade between floats and bands and things. And he gave me a list. He says, okay, get all these people in order and I will let you know when you need to have them go so we can keep them in line. And so I spent 3 hours as a 10-year-old organizing this parade so that everyone was in line. And my dad realized I was pretty good at it. And I realized that I like this. This is fun to me. I like putting things in order and following a system. And so as a young boy, I realized that I'm organized. I mean, I didn't say it like that in my mind, but when I look back on it, I liked the feeling it gave me and I enjoyed doing it. And so that was kind of instrumental. As I got older and I got into other things, I always realized that if it was anything that had to do with being organized, I really thrived and I enjoyed it. And that kind of was a key point for me when I was younger.
Well, that is interesting. So you actually did come up with that insight at 10 years old.
Well, I don't know if I acknowledged it like verbally. I just acknowledged the feeling of it, right? I acknowledged that I enjoyed putting things in order and following a system and making sure it's from point A to point Z was done properly. And that felt good to me. So I think it was more of that than saying, I'm an organized person and I'm good at it. You know, I don't think I said it like that. You know, it's more of the process I enjoyed and I realized that though.
But yeah, even the aspect of actually acknowledging and realizing at 10 years old that, I enjoyed this process. You know, that's a good insight for a 10-year-old to come up with.
Yeah.
I like having my life organized, but I don't like to be the one to organize it. So, so I like people like you around in my life, and I need more of them because I can get things disorganized real quickly. Well, tell us about a fork in the road in your life that has made all the difference. Robert Frost penned those words many, many years ago. 2 roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So tell us about a time you took the road less traveled by that has made all the difference in your life.
Yeah. So for me, it came about 10 years into my working career. I was doing massive direct mail campaigns for a big financial publisher. And I mean like 30, 40 million pieces a year of direct mail. And I was managing the whole process from A to Z. And I was really good at it, and the company liked me. But the company was privately owned, and the people that owned it, the husband and wife, were getting a divorce, and things were going to go really south really quickly. It was kind of getting ugly. You know, it's one of those things that I don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I decided, you know what, even though I love my job, I need to get out of this. And at the time, I had a choice of going into a number of different positions at other things. Like there was a bank who was talking to me, wanted me to come do marketing for this big bank, and I just wasn't sure if I wanted to go the route of being employed by someone else, which would have been like a bank, and having a secure job, or going the path of taking my knowledge and the things that I had grown and learned of 10 years of doing direct mail and going out on my own and becoming a direct mail consultant. And at the time, I had one young child at home who was a year and a half, and we were about ready to have number two on the way real soon. So it was like I wanted some stability, but I also had a young family that I was going to have to feed. And I ended up going with the second option of becoming a direct mail consultant. And that was, you know, over 15 years ago. And I'm so thankful I did. But the fork in the road was, do I go it on my own and be an entrepreneur and work for myself? Or do I go the secure route and work for like a bank? And I'm thankful that I went down the road that I chose.
Well, that had to be an extraordinarily frightening decision to make. Did you have examples in your life of entrepreneurs who had been successful, or how did you find, I don't know if you call it courage or strength or fortitude or whatever, how did you find that within yourself to actually make that decision?
Well, on my side of the family, I did not have any entrepreneurs. My wife's side was full of them. Her dad and her aunts and uncles all had their own businesses. And sometimes the businesses failed, and other times they were successful. And I saw them go in and out of business multiple times, but they always loved it and they thrived on it. And so I always enjoyed going to family dinners and hear them talk about the things that they were doing. So I was really encouraged from her side of the family. Also, the company that I had worked for, even though I was leaving it, the owner was an entrepreneur, and he was always trying different things. And sometimes they'd work and sometimes they wouldn't. But I really appreciated that, and I gravitated towards that. So yes, I mean, that was probably my encouragement, was just being around my wife's family, being around my old boss, that made me want to do that. And seeing others succeed at it made me feel like I could too.
Mm-hmm. So did you have any, I mean, you had the marketing background and all that, but did you have any help, any guidance in actually establishing the business aspect of the marketing?
Well, what do you do when you go out, on your own? You think in terms of being able to go out and find, you beat the pavement, you try and go and find people to work with. And so I did some of that, but also I consider it kind of a God thing. Out of the blue, I had people calling me. Once I left the company I was working for, I had 3 or 4 large companies call me and say, hey, we heard about what you did at this publishing company. Would you be willing to do it for us too? Unsolicited, unplanned, just it came to me. And so the first 2, 3, 4 years of doing this on my own, I didn't have time to go beat the pavement. I was just slammed with people calling me who wanted to work with me. And that was a huge blessing because I was not prepared for that. I was expecting to have to go find work. Yeah. And it was almost immediate work came to me, and it was amazing.
Well, gosh, if that isn't a message from above, I don't know what it is.
I don't either.
That was a wonderful start to your business there. So you've been doing this for 15 years. I'm sure that throughout the whole 15 years, it has not all been a bed of roses. And all successful people have had to learn to deal with setbacks and disappointments. So can you talk to us about, and this may be a business setback, it could be a personal setback, but a major setback, disappointment in your life that you look back on now and you go, that was a terrible thing to go through, but at the same time, it was really an educational experience, and
Sure.
I'm glad I had that.
Sure. I think probably as a business owner, I think all of us could give dozens of examples of those, right? I mean, there's always challenges and trials. I remember early on when I had to hire someone, or multiple times I've had to hire multiple people to keep up with the amount of business I had. And I remember I had a young man, and I put too much trust in him, and he signed off on a project, and he made a mistake, and it cost me $12,000. So I remember that hurting both financially, hurt me with my relationship with him as an employee, and realizing as an owner I made a mistake. I had given somebody too much responsibility too early, and it's something I should have been doing myself, right? So that was one. I mean, that was a big one because of the cost. Others have been, I've had to the point where I've had a number of employees, and thinking that the more people I hire, that the easier my job will be, that I can pass on more stuff. And at one point I had, 5 full-time people and then some freelancers, but I was working 5 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week, and then in the evening, and then a little bit on the weekends. And I'm like, wait a second, I am running like crazy. What is going on? And I realized it's more mouths I had to feed. I felt this sense of obligation because now I have more people, got to bring in more work, more projects, which required more of me. And so I learned for me, my business as a consultant, that bigger wasn't better. Actually being smaller and more focused on a few clients was much more enjoyable and much more manageable than having a huge team and having huge projects. So those are a few of them.
I'm sure there's many more. Well, thank you for sharing those. As you look back on your life and look back over the last 10, 20 years of your life, how have you changed emotionally and psychologically and spiritually? And what do you account for those changes in your life?
Well, I think one of the bigger changes is just balancing my time. Like I went from, producing a lot of revenue every year, having lots of employees, to just me and one other person now. And so kind of leans off of that, having 5 people billing out a ton of money every year, to now just having 2 of us. And what that change has done is just, it's made it so my workday is normal. I can work 8 to 5 if I want. I can take time off. I can spend more time with my family. Whereas before I couldn't. And that was a big change, just going down the road that was less revenue, smaller business, but my livelihood was so much better and is so much better. Mm-hmm. So that is a huge change. And I think early on, part of the thing was I was so worried about succeeding that I said yes to everything. But now I'm to that point where I'm okay saying no. I've had one big client who I was billing out a lot of money, and I fired him as a client because they weren't ethical. They just didn't feel right. They weren't nice. They weren't nice to their vendors. Frankly, I just didn't like working with them. And I didn't feel good about what they're doing. Now, he was in the medical space, so his business was legit. Just the way he went about it didn't feel right. Mm-hmm. And so I said, I'm not doing this. I'm done. So it was the courage to be able to say no and fire a client, even though he's paying me a lot of money, because I'm mature enough now that I can say, hey, I don't need that in my life. I'm not going to deal with that. So I think as I've gotten older and done this longer, I'm feeling more comfortable with saying no to things.
That has to be a major revelation. I don't imagine it was easy to come to that point of saying, I've said yes to everything time and time again, and I'm come to a place in my life where I'm going to say no. Tell us a little bit more about that realization and how it is that you actually were able to come to a point and place where you could actually say, I can say no when it doesn't feel right for me?
Sure. I think because I took on so many projects in the beginning that some were hard, some of them weren't a good fit. And I said yes to everything. I got worn down. It was almost I got to that point because I was beaten up, right? I had had so many hard seasons of working so hard and so long. I think when it came to the point where I was tired, I was like, you know what? I don't want to work 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day. I don't want to have to work evenings and some weekends. And I think because of that desire to get away from that, that's what gave me the motivation to say, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired of it. And so for me, when I made that decision, it was actually very easy to say, yeah, I'm done with this. I can move on. Now, is it scary? Yeah, it still is. Sometimes when work comes your way and it's not a fit, sometimes it's scary to say no, because you're still thinking ahead going, well, am I going to wish I hadn't have said no? Am I going to wish I had this project in the future? So, I mean, that's still real and alive today. It's not like I've arrived from that yet. I still have to deal with it, but I'm much better at saying no. And I say more no's than yeses currently because I try and keep that nice balance going in my life.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about. Were those voices in your head as you're saying no to business coming in and looking at the bills over on your desk and that have to be paid, and the mouths in your family that have to be fed, and here you are having the courage to say no, and that little voice in your head saying, you better take this. You don't know when that next one's coming along.
That's right. That's right.
So, yeah. Well, that is an amazing revelation. And I suspect it has something to do with the aspect of really what you consider to be your purpose and your meaning in life. So think about that question. What is your purpose? What is your meaning? What really gives you that sense of reason and purpose to get up and get going each and every morning? So think about that for a moment here. My guest today, if you're just tuning in, is Greg Simpson. He is the owner of Simpson Direct, a direct marketing company, and he consults with many successful businesses and is the author of the Direct Mail Solution and the Advertising Solution. So what is your purpose, your meaning in life?
Well, I mean, for me, purpose isn't about work. It's not a work-related thing. Work is, I love what I do. I do want to see my clients be successful. I've got many great relationships there and great clients that I've worked with for many years. And those are all good, But for me, my purpose is my family. And what's important to me is my kids. And, from a more personal side, I want my kids to raise up and be godly people. I want them to do what's right in life, to make good choices, to be lovers of people. So to me, that's my purpose, is when I get off work, is pointing to my kids and my family and making sure that they're heading in the right direction.
So how do you, you've talked a little bit about this, but how do you, I was talking to, it was an interview with a business person who has been in the business world for some 40 years. He's had his own businesses for more than 20 years. He's been an advisor to other businesses. And he was talking about this aspect of balancing work life and your own life. And he said, that's a fallacy. There's no way to balance life and work, that it's a matter of integration. And it sounds to me like that's, at least maybe not consciously, but it sounds to me like you're on that path with your ability to start saying no to different projects and yes to the right projects. It sounds to me like it is that integration with what is really meaningful in your life and integrating the means of actually taking care of what is important and meaningful in your life.
Yeah, and I think to go with that, I mean, it's also, I mean, to be honest, I have to say no to making more money and growing a bigger company because I have a bigger desire to pour into my family. When I had 5 employees and multiple, freelancers working for me, I was on the road all the time, going to events and seminars and speaking and doing all these things. But that to me, sure, I grew a bigger business, but I didn't was able to pour on my family as much. So for me, it means in order to do what I want, I've got to make less so that I can spend more time at home. And I'm totally happy and content with that. Obviously, not everyone's going to feel that way. People have different motives, but for me, that was my main motivation for this.
Some major decisions to be certain there, and not easy decisions to make. But I'm sure as you've grown and matured, you've come into yourself more and have a better understanding of who you are and really what is and isn't important to you in your life.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end of our time here, Greg. And so I have one last question that I ask all of my guests. And before I get to that question, tell the folks how they can get in touch with you, and tell us not only just how they can get in touch with you, but take a couple of minutes here to tell us how it is that a marketing consultant can be of benefit to them.
Sure. So the best way to get in touch with me is to just go to my website. There's contact form on there. There's also phone number. There's blog posts. There's free information. There's all sorts of good stuff on there. So you go to Simpson-Direct.com. That's Simpson-Direct.com. You can also go into Google and type in Craig Simpson Direct Mail, and my webpage is going to pop up. So why do you need a consultant? For me, it's the clients that I work with, it's people who want to use direct mail to help grow their business. And those are the clients that I work with. I work with real estate investors is one niche I work with. And that's those who are looking for people to buy houses from. They're looking for absentee owners or people who have 60% or more equity in their home or some other thing. Maybe it's pre-foreclosures or something. And they're wanting to use direct mail to attract prospects in which they can invest in. And invest in their properties. And there's lots of different ways to go about doing it, but that's, mainly the people who contact me are those who are interested in using direct mail. So if you have thought about it, that's when you'd want to reach out to me to find out if, hey, that's just something I want to try. Let me give Craig a call or shoot him an email. That's really the best thing to find me on Simpson-Direct.com.
So what would be the difference in the service that you provide and someone going directly to a direct marketing company?
Well, everything I do is unique. So I don't have a canned response for everyone. If whatever it is you're marketing that's unique and different is, or whatever that's unique and different about you is what we're going to market. It's not like I have one postcard or one sales letter that we use for everyone. I try and make it very unique for every market, for every client, for every group that you're going after, because I find that uniqueness gives a better response rate than just doing kind of a general out of the box type campaign.
Okay. Well, very good. So, Greg, my last question for you today is, when you come to the end of this life's journey, how do you want your epitaph to read?
Boy, what do you mean by that? I don't even know what an epitaph is. I'm not sure.
Your obituary, or
obituary.
How are you going to have your tombstone to read?
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's something I haven't thought about too much. I don't really want to think about my death yet, but
I hope it's
for
a
me, I
long
want
ways
to
off
be.
here.
What's that?
I hope it's a long ways off.
Yes, for all of us.
Yes.
For me, is I want to be known as a godly family man who does what is right. That's ultimately what I want to be known as.
Well, very good. Sounds like you're well on the path towards that. And I do hope you have a very long life before you have to worry about that. It's been a pleasure, Craig, having you on the show. You've been a delightful guest, and I hope we can have future conversations to carry on this discussion. So thank you very much, Craig.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for tuning in to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital works with both new and established investors nationwide, creating opportunities to flourish in all areas of life. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures great and small flourish abundantly. For resources to enhance your well-being through multifamily real estate investment, connect with us online at capital.steedtalker.com.